What is something that really freaks you out on an existential level? Chaos. The thought that the universe just gets more and more disorganized freaks me out ever since I learned about it in school, so I just pretend it doesn't exist. Entropy is the sole driver behind every single transfer of energy and matter. It's a simple rule. As the universe's position along the t-axis increases, the disorganization of matter and energy in the x, y and z axis must increase, and it cannot stagnate or reverse. Anything seen as a reversal is caused by entropy increasing somewhere else, and that increase must happen at a time and rate that at any given point it exceeds the entropy decrease happening as a result. For the decrease to happen first is a violation of causality. If it's any consolation, once the universe reaches maximum entropy it'll probably undergo the big crunch and then be recreated with another big bang, and then with any luck there will be sapient life 14 billion years later. It's the life cycle of the universe. No. Because the universe is accelerating, there will be no big crunch. For there to be a big crunch, gravity would need to slow the expansion, which isn't happening. There is speculation about a big rip, but as far as I know the consensus is heat death. How we could die at any second. Today, tomorrow, in a week, in the next 5 minutes, and nobody can stop it. Death is one of the true guarantees of life. I'm not sure what's worse, knowing you're dying, or dying without knowing it. I think death becomes a lot easier, for myself at least, to consider it as the price to be paid for life. Like really, living is truly crazy. We all exist together, but I'm me, and you are you. I will never see anything from anyone else's eyes. It's really a beautiful thing that we can see and explore and become something. If death is the price to pay for living, then I think it's worth it. Wow, I did not expect to wake up to this. Thank you, kind stranger, for my first gold. I have to give homage to my father for helping me view death this way. He's a very intelligent man and I'm really glad to see people's opinions on this crazy thought I've had. I hope you all enjoy your existences. I used to be really scared of dying until I started looking at it this way. Funny to see other people with the same view. Never met them in real life that I know of. That the tiniest, most inconsequential decision can completely change the entire course of your life. Nearly 20 years ago, I needed some new shoes for work. As a poor student I got the cheapest pair I could find. 2 days later, I was supposed to be going straight from work to a club with my friends when, halfway through my shift, the sole half ripped off one of the shoes. I didn't have enough time to get home, change my shoes, and get back to work before everyone left for the club, so I just went home and gave it a miss. That night, I started chatting with someone on a forum. A year later, went to visit them in America. 2 years later I moved to America, and we got married. 10 years after that we both moved back to the UK. Had I chosen a different pair of shoes, I'd never met my wife, never moved to America, and my life would be completely different now. Because shoes. Guess you could say she's your soulmate. If it was easier to give gold on mobile, you'd have it, my friend. I think you accidentally gave gold to yourself instead. The vastness of space. Learning it in high school is what actually gave me the final push into realizing I was an atheist. You know those GIFs that compare the size of planets to stars to supermassive stars? Every time it pulls out my heart starts beating faster, because it just seems wrong on a very basic level that something that big could exist anywhere. I can't comprehend how massive space is, that it can contain stars that defy imagination, and how it's also so incredibly empty at the same time. I'm not an atheist, but just how old and big the universe is makes me point and laugh at anyone who is a creationist, because come on. No son. No. Just look at it. I know intellectually that the universe is way bigger than IG 1011 largest galaxy, which is way bigger than UISQT largest star, which is way bigger than our sun. But, as far as big feels, they all feel the same size, incomprehensibly big to the point that the distinctions just don't matter. UISQT is the largest star, not Vicanus Majoris. Pick a random day on this planet 1 billion years from now. Barren. Baking in the light of an expanding red giant we once called the sun. None of us here, and no trace that we ever were here. All of us lost to time. Our Earth just another void celestial object. The idea that the earth would eventually be barren never really hit me until I imagined a specific day. One day in the future, going by the current calendar, it will be my birthday, March 19th. The earth will exist. This spot where I sit right now will exist. The date itself will technically exist. It will technically be an anniversary of the day I came into this world. But there will be nothing living to recognize it, or even know such a thing as March 19th ever existed at all, let alone that I existed and was born on that day. Humans, or whatever we become, might be able to prevent the death of the sun by then, or find a way to live without it. A billion years is plenty of time to invent a fusion-powered spaceship. How you can trace the whole path of your life to some small, seemingly inconsequential event. Decades ago, when I was new to this area, I met a guy on the golf course and we became friends. I met others through him, and now 90% of my friends and contacts can be traced back to that meeting. If I had not golfed that day, or got one extra red light on the way to the course, would I have a whole separate set of friends now? Great one. I needed 3 C's to go to a university in London. I was ill for my exams and complacent, and got C, D, so went to the University of Manchester. My children literally wouldn't exist if I had studied a bit harder at computer science. I'm finishing my law degree this year because a few years ago I ran into a guy I barely knew outside an unrelated exam, and he coached me through the course enough to net me an extremely close pass, which gave me the points I needed to continue with the degree. That every public institution, every province of government, every law of any nation, it all works because a sufficiently high percentage of people silently assent that it does. It doesn't matter what type of government is in place. If 70% of the population woke up tomorrow and decided that currency has no value and governance is unnecessary, that's exactly what would happen. Dude, I think about this all the time. I like to study a lot of constitutional law, and man, it doesn't ever give me a final answer that makes me comfortable. Especially in my country, Brazil, so you'll stop asking. Our constituent is only a few years older than me, and it has so much power over every sort of aspect of our lives as individuals and as a society. It's mind-blowing. Plot twist, he's an American who's over 200 years old. Didn't know Keanu Reeves was on Reddit. It takes a admittedly microscopic amount of time for your brain to process every stimulus that you receive. This means that you are never perceiving reality in real time. There's the slightest delay between reality and your perception of it. What's worse is that your brain lies to you and tries to trick you about it. Find a clock with a second hand. Look away. Now look right at it. See, the second hand takes just a little longer to move that first second than all the other seconds that come after. That's because your first glimpse of the hand moving is blurry. So your brain waits for it to be in focus, copies that frame, and pastes it backwards instead of the blur. Your brain literally pauses time to make things look how you'd expect it to look. If it's lying about that, what else is it lying about? If we let our brains get too smart, they will start taking over our bodies. Knowledge lost. Societies that existed millennia before ours had incredibly complex social structures, massive infrastructure, built incredible wonders, understood boggling amounts of modern math, and did it all in harsher conditions with less technology. So clearly they were smart and capable, at least some. Imagine all the great knowledge that they had which we lost. All the theorems or observations they made in societies that lasted 10 times as long as many of today's, which disappeared in war or accident. Knowledge defines man. We are a species of filers who wish to make pattern and sense out of chaos. Yet knowledge is so very fragile. It messes me up that people 1000 years ago were just as capable to learn what we are now. A kid from early Rome could go to school in 2018 and be just as smart as everyone else. I can never truly understand how another person perceives the world. Are we touching the same thing? Is a sense of smell similar? If I say it's the color red and the other person agrees, how do we know we are seeing the same shade of red? And vice versa. No one else can feel what I feel, what I think, and truly understand my existence. My perception is a result of my organs sensing my stimulus and interpreting them through my own unique mindset, memories and experience. I can communicate. We can all try to empathize. We write, read, sing, create videos, create wide media to share our lives. We love and care. But we are all truly alone. Always. Our perception is the only one that is available to us, and no way to share it with another. That no matter how much you get to know someone, no matter how much you share your life, learn about them, feel as though you are almost the same person, there will always be an infinite gulf between who you think they are and who they really are. You cannot know someone else. You can only know your perception of them. Your experience of that person flows through the filter of your personality, your experiences and memories, your biases and intuitions. You don't know them, you know your conception of them. Subjectivity of experience makes truly knowing another person completely impossible. We are all perfectly isolated souls, completely separate from everyone else, desperately reaching out to convince ourselves we aren't really alone. Add that to the fact that we are constantly changing. I have no interest in having kids. That means that I'm the final result of thousands and thousands and thousands of years of evolution and successful reproduction. But you're not the final result. Our genetics aren't all we pass on. Your specific genetic code may not move on, but the effect you have on others around you and in your life is non-zero. Your actions at some point may keep someone from committing suicide, allowing them to have children. Or a donation may give somebody enough sustenance to raise children. And a million other potential impacts you can potentially have in the lives of others, all of which potentially propagate through the species over millennia. I think our influence on others of our species is just as critical as the genetic code we pass on or don't. That whatever I did in the past are now just memories. Even yesterday. Even though sometimes it feels like my childhood just happened. It was 20 years ago and they are memories. Did those actions even happen? It's hard to explain the feeling. My dad died 21 years ago. It was well before the age of camera phones and he really didn't like having his picture taken regardless. As a result I have maybe 2 pictures of him. I think I still have a mental picture of him, but sometimes I'm not so sure. He was one of the most significant people in my life and his death is one of the most significant events in my life, but honestly, there's a good chance that if he walked up to me today, I wouldn't recognize him.